So we're going to go forward, but first I'm going to take y'all back. We're going to go back to 1991, a time where the World Wide Web just went live, gas was $1, Nirvana just released their debut album, but most importantly, on August 29th, 1991, Austin City Council passed a proclamation declaring Austin as the live music capital of the world. Now, a lot of us have heard this phrase, and not many people actually know where it comes from. So I did some digging. And it actually goes back a little further. So in 1985, there was a gentleman named David Lord, and he was looking to promote Austin tourism. So he takes out an ad in Billboard magazine to promote the Austin music industry. And the phrase was born. That is the live music capital of the world. But not only does it say that, it has a boast on there that Austin is Texas' biggest music exporter coast to coast. Not Dallas, not Houston, Austin. But when you look at some of the names on this list, you have Willie Nelson, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimmy Ray Vaughan. You can kind of make that claim and you can stick by it. And even me at that time, I'm a young kid. And watching PBS and in between Arthur and Sesame Street, they'll run these ads for local artists like Vallejo, Los Lonely Boys, and Bob Schneider. These are acts that I never would have been exposed to any other way. And it started my love for the music industry. So then I started asking myself, are these things still true? Are we still Texas' largest music exporter? And also for those expats moving into the city every day, it seems like, or the younger generations, do they still get to experience the same magic I did that went on to change my life? So what I did was I started looking through a couple of places to find some data. Start off with Spotify, of course, because hey, we all go there. And I go to Spotify and I start saying, okay, how many artists from Austin average over 1 million streams a month? And you have some of the normal suspects. You have Gary Clark Jr., of course, Austin icon. You have Black Pumas, whose song Colors was one of the anthems of the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as Dayglow. Actually, I just found out about Dayglow while I was researching this. He used TikTok and YouTube to blow up his music and went on to play many of the top late night shows in America. But after that, the list gets very scarce. We're talking like Pride Rock _ scarce. It gets really bad very quickly. And so before I even go any further, I want to let you know the financial aspect of even doing 1 million streams. It brings in about $4,000 on Spotify. And that's before labels come in, publishers come in, collaborators come in, managers come in, and want to take their piece. And then you also have to look at the fact that a lot of artists don't even eclipse that number. Many don't even pass over 100,000 streams a month. And I know a lot of people, they're saying, well, they play shows, right? That's how they make their money, right? Perhaps, depending on who you are. In my own personal experience early in my career, there are many a times we played a show, pays $500. Sounds great, but it's a 5-piece band. And not only is it a 5-piece band, we have things like gas, travel, rehearsal, wardrobe, and all that starts to eat into the money. And so the main artist is walking away with sometimes $50. Sometimes they're actually walking away being in negative. And so what happens is you end up in this gig trap. It's unsustainable. So I said, hey, let's do a checkup. What I diagnosed Austin as having is what I like to call a negative creative GDP. And so what that means is we import a lot more than we export as far as music goes. And to give you an example, let's look at a shining example of what I like to call a healthy music city, Nashville, Tennessee. See, Nashville, they develop their artists. They have the infrastructure around their artists. Then they send those artists out. They hire local crews, they have local management, local businesses support them. They go all around the country, gathering up all that revenue, come back and put it back into that Nashville scene. Austin, we see half of that piece of pie half the time. We see the artists coming through all the time, but our artists, they tend to come here, they play here, and they end up in almost this like Austin gig cycle. I call it Austin famous almost. Like you playing a couple of gigs, you hit a large stage, you continue playing and playing and playing in a circle. So you're on this hamster wheel. And it's very unsustainable. So we're almost running a negative trade deficit with that. And then I start to look at why that may be. And I come up with a couple of different things. And the first one is what I like to call a genre gap. So we have a running joke, like in the music industry here, that if you don't have a guitar, you will never get on the main stage in Austin. It's just not happening. And in the 1990s, when blues and rock were the predominant genres, perfectly fine. Go on, that's great. But in 2026, the world has changed. We now have genres like R&B, hip hop, Latin music. Don't believe me? Check the 2026 Grammy Awards that are currently taking over the industry. We have to adapt with them. I'll give you another example of a city that has adapted very well. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. See, in Philadelphia, their first artist that I went back to check out was Hall & Oates. I don't have to give you the timeline. You can check the hairstyles. You can go from there and assume when it was. All right, it was a while ago. But they had so many hits. They had great music. But see, then Philadelphia, they evolve, and they go into the second generation. And the second generation includes icons like Jill Scott, Boyz II Men, The Roots, and a man that we might know as Willard Smith or Will Smith or the Fresh Prince. He's kind of popular. But then they continue evolving. And so you come to the current side, where you have artists like Jasmine Sullivan, Meek Mill, and up-and-comer Tierra Whack. In this industry, it is a living, breathing ecosystem. You have to adapt to survive. See, the other issue I have is Austin tends to be what they call a starter city. It's like a AAA baseball team. We have talent that's here, they develop, they play their first show, sell their first CD, get their first fan here, and then they get ready for that major label deal. They get ready for that first major tour. Then they leave. And it's kind of like being a fan of a team where you have that nice young prospect. He's about to have that career-defining year. Then all of a sudden he gets a call from the Dallases, the Houstons, the LAs, the Nashvilles, the New Yorks, and says, hey, come on over here. We got the infrastructure. We got a chance to get you to the big leagues. Come on out here. We'll take care of you. Then they're out. And not only that, then they tour and they come back through Austin, and now we're importing our own supply. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And why are they doing this? Because we also have an infrastructure issue. See, Austin has 79% more venues per capita than the average American city. You throw a rock, you'll hit a venue. You can catch music almost anywhere out here. But if you look at Texas, just for instance, when you look for the broadcast centers, when you look for the centers where the label offices are, when you look for where the PR offices are, the management firms, those are going to be located in Houston and Dallas. And that's how we get stuck in that gigging circle. And so essentially what we start to do is we're not building a music scene anymore. We're building a museum. And after that, we have to look at who's choosing this infrastructure. So then you come down to a gatekeeper issue. The people who make the decisions on a macro level, we're talking the politicians, the venue owners, the power players, everybody like that, music Illuminati, if you will. All those people who make those decisions. And there's a monolithic view there. A lot of them are out of touch, and I'm not saying it's a malicious thing. They're out of touch. They don't understand what's going on in the current music industry. They don't understand why K-pop is popping up, why Latin music is popping up. We have to understand what's going on, and we have to stay abreast. Diversity does help. So all of this is what we like to call the as-is state. And to go back to the business side of me, it's an as-is state. It's how we are right now. We're a 1991 time capsule of a gigging economy, and we are falling behind. But we also want to look at a to-be state. Where are we going next? And so before I even go there, I want to look at the eras that we've been through. So we want to build an infrastructure of industry. When I started out in this industry, it was what I like to call the blog era. You were defined by Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, allhiphop.com, and places like that broke the artists. And at this time, this is also where you started to see the rise of iTunes. Then we move on to what I call the streaming era. See, in the streaming era, we went from ownership of music to access to music. That's where you see Spotify starting to pop up. That's where you see iTunes give way to Apple Music. But then it kept evolving. Then it comes to what the current era I like to call the content era, which is defined by virality. In the blog era that I started off in, we had A&Rs. They scouted all the artists. See, in the content era, TikTok is our music scouts now. And when you look at that, you say, all right, where do we need to go? Let's not just look at the problems. And when I look at it, I say, first and foremost, we have to look at building out essentially a cultural exchanges with a lot of these other cities. They all love to come here. Let's send our artists there. We get venue agreements. They send their artists here. We're exposed to new fans. They're exposed to new fans. Collaborations happen. It's amazing. But then you take it a step further. You look at creative branding. You look at using local artists and influencers for local brands. Because influencer marketing is one of the key parts of a marketing mix nowadays. Look at your current T-Mobile commercials. They have influencers all over the place. And you don't necessarily need somebody with 30 million followers to be an influencer. You can use your local artists to promote your brand. So now you are being exposed to an entirely new demographic that you would have never been exposed to. And at the same time, the artist is getting paid. Everybody is winning. And also educating our people on what you can do in the music industry. Not everybody can sing a song, not everybody can play a note, but you still want to be involved in the music industry. I am guilty of this. I can't sing, can't do anything. I play the other keyboard, I send emails. That is all I do. That is my jam, I'm sorry. But there's so much that you can do. You can be a manager, you can be a PR rep, you can be a brand coordinator, merchandise coordinator. There is a plethora of jobs in the music industry so that you can stay so close to the thing that you love. And then also, let's diversify our leadership. Let's make these rooms look a little bit different. The young people, and yes, younger than me, I'm even talking like the 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, a lot of the students who go to this very school, they have a perspective that's fresh. I don't want to go into a room and explain why TikTok is important. We're spending time having back and forth discussions when we should be innovating. So we have to go into the next era. And when I look at going into the next era, I look at some of the cities that have done it. Because when one place breaks out in a city, the entire industry follows. And so you've seen it with Houston in the early 2000s. You've seen it in Seattle with the grunge movement in the 90s. And you also seen it with Atlanta. Actually, Atlanta is a perfect example, and that is why their face is up here. See, Atlanta was just like Austin. There was talent everywhere. Everybody thinks that Atlanta's always been like that and pushing out talent. But actually, Atlanta had all the talent in the world, but no infrastructure. But then Antonio L.A. Reid and Kenneth Babyface Edmonds showed up to Atlanta and started a record label called LaFace Records. They developed their artists. They provided that infrastructure. And so then they went on to put out acts like Outkast, TLC, Pink. Yes, the same people who made Outkast also brought you Pink. I know that's a surprise, but yes, that is true. And they changed the music landscape and they changed the world. That is something that we can also do here. And so, a challenge to y'all. And everybody in here is a part of it because guess what? We all love music. Whether you listen to it in your car, whether it got you through a breakup, whether you leave your job and you start putting on some gangster music, whatever you do, you're all music fans. And so we all play a part. And so to the fans, I do want to say this. Your engagement is the currency of the content era. Every like, every share, every stream, every comment, every follow. Those artists need those. Or if you can even buy a t-shirt to help that artist get out from that negative $500 gig and get partially back up so that they can get gas on the way home. There are many different things that you can do. And understand this, you are the most important part of the music industry. Not a label, not a publisher, not a radio station, not some semi-successful manager up here ranting at you for 15 minutes. Nobody like that. You are the most important people in the industry. Now, the power players, the people who can make difference on the macro level, you are not off the hook. First off, you are also fans most likely, so like, share, stream, and do all the other things. But two, we need those macro changes. Let's talk about those creative exchanges. Let's talk about how to bring the label satellite offices to Austin, Texas. Let's talk about how we teach people about the business of music and not just the performance of music. And to my artists, keep doing what you're doing. Because see, you're the soundtrack of our lives, the voices of the revolution. You get us through so many things, and we appreciate you for it. And so I'll leave you with this. See, change is not by accident, typically. It's an intention, especially when you're changing for growth. So I'm going to quote a very famous philosopher. You know, he's up there with Plato and, all the rest of them. His name's Tupac Shakur. And he once said that he may not change the world, but he can spark the mind that will make that change in the world. And so I'm hoping that I spark somebody. I'm hoping that there's somebody else from my neighborhood who I'm not the first and I'm not the last to come up here. We all have a note to play in this song that we are writing. So together, Let's figure out the future that we can compose for Austin, Texas. Thank y'all and have a good night.